Afternoon guys, hope you're all okay and welcome to the first official painting guide of the channel. Going to be painting today. I've threatened to do it and today's the day of finally doing it. Is the Razorback. The techniques I'll be using, you'll be able to apply them to most tracked vehicles. So yeah, that's what we're painting today. If the colour of the natural lighting or just the lighting in general changes, don't worry, I'll be doing this in phases and we'll be clipping out and going stage by stage, so there might be a bit of artificial light work as well if I'm doing it on the night. Okay, so before we get started, on one of my previous posts I talked about not wanting an edge highlight. I don't like edge highlighting, and then I'd said in a follow-up post I'd sort of contradicted myself. So what I meant by that was, I'm just going to quickly show you on this Tau Commander. I'll show you two examples. My son's Tau Army, you've got two different types of miniatures. So you've got a Fire Warrior there. Let's hope that the camera doesn't blare it out too much. Let me see if I can just... So yeah, the Tau Commander, basically on him I use exactly the same technique as I did with, Tau Fire Warrior, I use exactly the same technique as I did on the Tau Commander. And I'd like to think you guys agree it's come out pretty well. And it was basically a case of putting your primary black base coat on, and then put your initial layer on, which was blues. I used Prussian blue for the blue, and I used, let's have a quick look. I'd said Mephiston red, but I didn't actually. I'd used the old Mecharite red, and then all I did was I washed all of the red cloth etc. in a Vallejo brown wash. And I used a Drakenhof Nightshade for the blues. Let it pool heavily in the recesses in both instances, and then I brought up the blue towards the edges as back with the Prussian blue, and then I used a Vallejo flat red for the red. And what I'd meant, I've touched upon it a few times, what I'd meant by allowing the washes to pool up in the recesses, it doesn't mean splatter the wash all over and then just leave it. What you have to do is you have to let the wash heavily sort of form into the recesses, but then you have to clean up the flat areas, the raised areas. You have to drag your brush across and clean up across and clean up that wash, otherwise it's just going to be a really dirty, horrible, lazy effect. So it's not like you're splashing it on. You do lather it on, absolutely lather it on, and then as soon as you've lathered the area, leave the recesses. Doesn't matter how heavily it pulls, because you're going for that darker shade. You're basically using the wash as a really deep shade, and then the wash is also creating your first layer. And then when you bring the base colour up again, that's creating a second layer and also like an edge highlight. So in that instance, just that sort of like three-way technique, as I say, I'd like to think it worked really well. Okay, now I used exactly the same technique on my Tau Commander, well, on my son's Tau Commander, sorry. And same with the figure. The figure is the old the Blood Angels Death Watch. I've got a stack of them when I used to collect Blood Angels back in the late 80s, early 90s, and they just sat, they were never painted, and I'll never use them again. So what I did was I converted them for bodies on the floor. Really happy with the base, how the base came out. I made him one of me and my son's army, the Crusaders. I'm really happy how that turned out on that. Same sort of technique, three-layer technique. Now the Commander is a different story altogether. Now, I don't know if it'll pick out, I hope it does, guys, but on the commander at the bottom, I'd used weathering and like damage as well. Sorry, these are all magnetised, and damage as well. And this is what I touched upon on one of the posts, saying visualise when you're painting the miniature. Before you go into it, don't just do weathering and damage just higgledy-piggledy. Visualise where that damage and where that weathering and things like that are coming from. And I'm going to go through this in the Razorback as well, because we're going to do the Razorback as if you've never painted before, and like you see, you'll be able to use it on all your different vehicles. Anyway, we'll go through it. But in this instance, I did exactly the same technique, and I'm not happy with that at all. I love the base. I really like the weathering on the feet, the battle damage on the feet, and the bit of the mud splatter and everything as well. Same goes with the girder that he's stood on and everything. He's got rust. What I'm going to do is at the end of the video, I'll take some pictures and put some stills at the end if it works. I'm not really good at this technology malarkey. Yeah, but on here I tried to use the same technique, and like I say, eyes, lenses, things like that. I'm happy with all that. Because I didn't want a cartoony effect. I didn't want like an edge highlight to make it look too clean. I wanted it to look like it was in a war, you know. I wanted it, so what I did was same technique, washed it all over to dull down the base colour, and then I just brought up the base colour again, if you can see there, places like that, as an edge highlight. Not an edge highlight, but just a highlight in general. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I think it works on things like on the legs and such, where you haven't got as much area, but I think on raised areas, on bigger surfaces, it just doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, somewhere down the line, re-wash carefully, reapply the wash to get those edges, you know, a bit closer to the actual raised areas, and then I'm going to, so this will be darker on the main surface using the wash. You'll get this colour more towards the edges, and then I will apply probably something like a thin down Calidor Sky or something like that, to just subtly edge highlight it. I just think you'll have a better effect, but I'll wash it down enough that it's not strikingly obvious. But yeah, I spent a lot of time on him, especially on the base, and I wanted that sort of dirty look. I wanted it to look like he was in a war. Now, if you notice on the battle damage and things like that, the way I visualise the Tau is almost like a Mayweather. You know, it's more about avoiding being hit and things. There's no damage on his hands. Them hands are never going to punch anything. It's not like, you know, like a power fist, or, you know, you might get a dreadnought running in and smashing things with power fist. They're never going to hit anything. This is the Tau we're talking about here. It's all about weaponry. So there's never going to be any battle damage on there. But what they do is they use the jetpacks and they smack the, you know, the landing into areas and bringing down suppressing fire. So when they're landing onto these girders and things like that, that's where all the damage is caused. So the only place you're seeing any weathering on there was on around the feet area. So that'll be a thing throughout all my armies, Sigma or 40k. I always visualise what this character or unit is, as the role that they're carrying out, and you know, so you'll see that in the weather and the battle damage, and we'll talk through that on the Razorback. So yeah, I'll just go through a few more things, because as I say, I am doing this as if it's a beginner coming to the page, to the channel, sorry. So just a few things of note. I am using this wash. I'll be putting this on pretty soon. As I said in my previous video, don't just apply a wash straight out the bottle. you can do, it's not like the paint's way thin and down, but if you've had one for a bit of time, you will lose, some of the water will evaporate and it will thicken up. So before you apply the wash, don't go to all that effort of getting your base colours down neatly and then spoil it with the wash. Check the consistency on a plate or something like that, and then make sure you get the right sort of consistency for where you're going to apply it. So that's my first thing I'd say. And the second thing, I've had this guy packaged up for a bit, there was a load of dust on him. And same, if you haven't painted in a while, there might be dust and things like that. Just make sure before you apply your paints onto any of these surfaces that you just give them a clean, just check for dust and check for bits, because there's nothing worse than thinning down your paints, thinking, oh great, this is going to look so smooth, and then you've picked up a bit of green flock or something, because you know, as you've been basing your miniatures, it's just floated into your tray. So make sure you clean your trays up. And then I'm just going to go through the colours as well that I'll be using to paint this. There might be other colours added along the way, and if there is, I'll put them in. So let's look. We have got Mechrite Red is the base colour for the tank, but I know that I love this colour, so I bought a stock load on eBay. I really had to get hold of now. So you can just use something like Mephiston Red, I think that's the most current one. We will be using a Scorch Brown for applying battle damage. We'll be using a little blue dabber to apply that on, and then we'll be putting like a metallic, dry brushing the metallic on top of that. We'll also be using Calidor Sky for the highlights of the sights and the scopes and such. We'll be using Prussian Blue, Vallejo Prussian Blue for the base colours for the sights and everything. Lead Belcher for the metallics. Black and white, obviously you can use whatever Games Workshop or wherever you want for blacks and whites. For the weather and for the mud and dust, I'll mainly be using German Camp Medium Brown, model colour Vallejo. I find that it's a really realistic looking sort of dusty mud, so we'll be using that. Roomfang Steel will be, if I decide to apply an edge highlight on the metallics, then I'll be using Roomfang Steel. Flat Red to bring up the edge highlights around off the Mechrite. And then it's a choice really. I'm probably going to go for Vallejo Brassy Brass, but you could use something like, if you've got old paint, you could use like a Dwarf Bronze or maybe the Retributor Armour for things like the eagle on the front and that. And then I haven't got it out, but we'll be using you could use like an Ushtabi bone, but I'll be using one of the Vallejo equivalents for the banner and such, and also for on these doors either side and on the front sort of mudguard type things. We'll be putting the Crusaders flag on that, so I'll be using say the same sort of Ushtabi bone, sort of like bone skull colour as well, but I'll show you that colour then. If there's any other colours I use along the way, guys, I will show you them and tell you what they are and things, and I'll try as best as possible, if I'm using a Vallejo, to tell you what the equivalent Warhammer colour is, and vice versa. So right, this is the last time you're going to see my ugly mug for a while, so without further ado, let's get started. Thanks guys. Okay guys, here we go. So we've got the Razorback. The stage right at the minute is I have base coated it. Unfortunately it was already base coated before I started the tutorial. I have base coated it. We've got some little areas missed here, just around the front, so they need to be touched up. And I'd already applied the blue and just a slight raised highlight to the lenses as well. But again, when I've sprayed up with this base colour, I've messed up a little bit there, so they'll be getting cleaned up. Tracks and everything will be getting done. Gun will be getting its base colours on. All the base colours will be getting sorted out. So yeah, next time you see this, it'll have every base colour on it. So here we go. So first things first, I'm using bone white, Vallejo game colour bone white. Like you say, you can use a GW equivalent. But yeah, so you're going to get some, I'm going to put about 4, let's go for 5 drops of the bone white on there. Get the lid back on it. And then what we're going to do, using, I'd mentioned in the previous video for beginners, we're going to get our base brush, we're going to get some water onto it, and we're just going to get some water in the palette as well, dab it in, and we're going to get about 3 drops. I don't use a 1-for-1, especially not when I'm applying to big surfaces. You just need enough to thin the consistency so that you're not obscuring any details or creating a mess. Now again, I keep saying it over and over, this isn't teaching you proper long time gamers and painters out there. This is all for beginners. Once you've actually mixed your colour together, and yeah, I'm not using a wet palette here because I'd never really use a wet palette for applying base colours. Once you've done it, the important thing is to clean this brush up, because you don't want your brush, even though you're applying loads of colour, you don't want your brush too heavily loaded, because you can get pooling. And I don't mind pooling with washes, but I don't really like pooling with normal paints. So we're going to go for the door first. So what I'll do is I'll just sort of show you the areas I am going to be painting up. Don't worry when you try and avoid the handles and such, but don't worry if you do it them, because you're going to be cleaning everything up and you're going to be weathering and battle damaging this stuff anyway. So when you actually getting the paint on initially, it doesn't really matter how you apply it, but especially with the first stage, this is going to, if you can see the red through here, and it might actually be a little bit too thin. This is why I said don't do a 1-for-1. But when you are applying it, it's mainly the second coat that I would try and keep your brush strokes in the same direction, and it just helps things, just keeps things neat. So I'm going to be doing this door here. I've already done the front as I showed you. I'm going to be doing this door here, same thing. And look, you know, all these working parts here, these are going to all be they'll all be sort of greased up in reality by the techno priests and and the servitor. Well, it'll be the servitors doing all the work for you. But yeah, make sure you look at that. Right, so cases of that, because it's watered down, don't allow for any bubbling. Don't let them set. So if you do see bubbling, try and get the paint off your brush, and then just get your brush in there, get all of them. You're just drawing the paint off. You can apply it back onto these areas here, and then just draw the paint off again. And when you are doing, as I've mentioned this as well, when you are painting these, whatever you're painting, right, when you are doing it, just think, just start letting your mind go into almost like daydream mode and think, try and visualise what the vehicle would actually be doing in the game. But more importantly, if it was a real world setting and you were in the 41st millennium, I've mentioned again in previous video, I've been role playing. Role playing is my primary sort of hobby. I'm not doing it at the minute, but it is the thing I've been doing the most. And the most important thing about role playing is being able to visualise. So we'll have a look here. We're going to be doing the front as well. I'm just going to get these colours on the front to show you the areas that I'm going to be painting. And then what I'll do is I'll knock the camera off and I'll get the main layer on. I'll get the first layer on, and then we'll go to a second layer. I normally paint with the model closer to me because I've got the camera. This is the first time I've ever done it, guys. So because I've got the camera quite far away from me, it's a weird angle I'm painting. It's fine, but it's just new. That's all. I'll just take some getting used to. So yeah, when you're painting these up, you know, especially try and always have some decent music on or something. Don't let yourself get bored with the hobby. But while you're doing it, just try and visualise where this vehicle would be or the miniature would be, and where, you know, it's going to get weathering and battle damage. Now, when it comes to the vehicles, again, I've mentioned this in one of the previous posts. When it comes to vehicles, I'm at a bit of an advantage. I was in the army, I was in the TA for 3 years, and then I was in the regular army from 93 to 98. So I've actually seen, I know from first-hand experience where you're going to get damage, not so much from projectiles, even though, you know, when we were out in Canada and places like that, the infantry found it hilarious to shoot at the tanks because they knew we were safe inside, but all our gear, sleeping bags and everything were in storage racks outside, so that you'd hear bullets peppering off your vehicle, and the next thing, all your bloody food's being shot up. And so yeah, but when you know, I see a lot of things. You see a lot of let me just wash this brush. You see a lot of weathering. You see a lot of weathering, and not weathering so much, battle damage in places that, well, I have anyway, places around here and sometimes on the top. But you could imagine on the top in the Razorback, if people are using the top towards, on a Rhino, but the likes of Razorback, these hatches aren't really going to get used. You might get a bit of damage here where these are opened, and these top hatches will have a shut-off point, so there should never be any sort of battle damage around these parts. Your main battle damage is going to be where it's ramming creatures. So you're going to see damage around these parts. You might see some bullet damage. I might do a few bits of drill holes and things as we go along in these parts. As I say, same techniques will be used for all my vehicles. So these are the main parts, and you'll see damage to the doors where the drop down. So you're going to get damage around these parts. You're going to get oil and mud and grease in the hatches where they've been worked. So yeah, damage there. The exhaust vents are going to have be blackened, and you might get a bit of rust and things, but mainly just a bit of greasing, all stuff off the petrol cans around here. And then on the weathering, you're mainly getting it the way where I run our game, the well we run it on. It's a dusty well, so you're mainly going to be getting a little bit of dried mud splatter around these areas and on the undercarriage, and things like the Eagle. I probably use a dull wash. I would normally use something like a Reclin flesh shade on there, but because it's constantly head into the wind and the dust, I might probably just use like the Vallejo wash it's a duller brown, so it'll dull the colour down, because you're not going to have a big shiny Eagle when it's in the dust and everything so much. So yeah, things like that you'll notice. But these are primarily where you're going to get these colours. So I'll get the base layer properly spread on, and then we'll come back. Cheers, guys. Okay, guys, so that's 2 layers on, and the sun's gone behind the clouds, so we're using a combination of artificial and normal daylight. But that's 2 layers on, and as you can see, even with 2 layers, there's a slight bit of the red just slightly showing through. I did the back as well, and as you, if you, any of you have done a Razorback, you'll see that that's actually upside down. But there is a reason. I don't believe if you've got something like a Razorback that you would be able to get out the back of it, because you know you're going to have all your housing and your ammunition and everything, and like I said, I've worked on tanks for 5 years. You know, you're going to have your traversing equipment underneath there as well, your motor for that, and so that, as far as I'm concerned, that sort of like back half is engine and gun housing and things like that, so you need a bit more space. So I sort of turned it round just to give more space for the stuff, and I just thought I'd use that as another place to put the Crusaders cross. I haven't put it on the top because the Red Cross, in real life, the Red Cross obviously, and most people who are medical, you know, or charitable organisations put the Red Cross on the top so that they don't get blown up by allies and such, or even according to the Geneva Convention by enemy either, but we won't talk about that. So yeah, 2 layers on, and you will, I don't know if any beady-eyed people might notice some spillovers there, things like that, but obviously that'll all get cleaned up, and I certainly don't mind. I don't know about yous, but you will find that some colours are easier to work with than others, and I do find like a Sharpie Bone, or let's say the equivalent which I'm using, the Bone White, does tend it's quite a hard paint to work with. You're thinning it down and it can bubble a bit once you've thinned it down, and it wants to thicken back up. It wants to make its consistency again, so it's a bit hard to work with. Whereas, you know, if you get like a Mecharite red, you know, to clean up with, that's just a beautiful paint to work with. That's my all-time favourite paint. So yeah, so they'll all get cleaned up anyway. And what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to put the red crosses for the Crusaders onto the side of the doors. And what I'm going to do is and you can use this technique. I don't know if you've noticed, this is quite a similar colour scheme to Blood Ravens. I didn't even realise until the other week when I seen somebody's Blood Raven army on a Dark Artisan battle report. So go and check out Dark Artisan's battle reports, because they are really good. Yeah, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a ruler and I'm going to measure it, and then I'm going to get a pencil and just mark centre pieces and top and bottom centre pieces to create an accurate cross, rather than just drawing it on just now, getting a red, you know, paintbrush and doing it down. You know, it just helps to keep the miniature more uniform by making sure it's right in the middle. I'll be doing the same all over for the Crusaders cross. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to paint the cross on. And the reason I'm not too bothered about how it's shown slightly through as well, once I put the cross on, I'm going to move on to other parts of the vehicle. But eventually, once everything's on, I'm going to be washing the doors and everything with a brown wash, and then slightly bringing it back up again. So you will lose these few odd streaks. You'll lose them in the wash and the sort of, and then a layer back up. So you will lose all that. So don't worry about that. And yeah, we'll crack on a bit. See you soon, guys. Okay, welcome back, guys. Right, we're moving on to the next part of the painting phase, which is going to be the metallic parts. So I've already mixed my silver up, which is the lead belcher, and if you can help it, guys, try and get an old brush that you don't use too much, because I personally find that, you know, using the it just the brushes, when you're using the brushes, they don't really like metallics. That's a personal thing I've made. I don't know if anyone else has similar things. You can comment and tell me if they do. But yeah, if you've got an older brush, personally, I would try and use that when you're using metallics. So, like I say, make sure you've mixed it down. You still have to water down your metallics. And we're going to do the gun parts. I'm just going to basically apply, as I did with the others, I'm just going to put a layer on to show you which parts I'm going to be painting. Oh, by the way, it's got been out, done a few jobs, and come back, and it's now getting a bit darker, so I'm going to use a bit of artificial light. So apologies if the quality's changed a bit, but yeah. When you put, as I think I've said this before, when you're putting layers on like primary colours, I don't think it matters too much if you have to use artificial light. I think it's more for detailed work, really. Yeah, so I'm going to be putting silver in all of this. Just make sure it's evenly applied. It is watered down, as I say. And then now on the towing chain, I'm going to be silvering all of this up. Normally I would, you know, from my own experience seeing tank towing chains, all of this would be silver, and what they do is they grease up the actual chain itself, so there's not too much friction between all the fibrous threads on the chain. So even this would be silver, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this like a copper or something like that, just to distinguish between the two parts. And this will be a really dirty black sort of silver to represent the oil and the dirt and things like that. This will be a bit more cleaner. So we'll be doing that silver anyway. And then I've got to get the, you know, the bolter parts. These are all going to be silver. We'll get the grenade launchers are all going to be silver. I'm just, like I say, I'm just marking these up here so I know which parts are going to be silver, and then we'll get the camera off and we'll I'll crack on and show you it. Right, next phase. My hand isn't doing a very good job of masquerading the light off the I'll see about moving that light as well in a bit, see if it, otherwise my hand's going to just keep obscuring it. Obviously all the tracks are going to be painted silver. Mark them up. Pretty self-explanatory on tank tracks, isn't it? Inside of the tracks there, they're all going to be silver, so just mark them up. I don't know, I might do the, I think I'll do the jerry cans a different colour. I don't know if you noticed as well, guys, I've done a bit of battle damage on the tanks, some gunshots, bit of chippings on the front where it's rammed into stuff, on the sides. Let's just try and move that light a bit. Yeah, some gunshots on the side. Yeah, just a bit of basic detail, damage. There's some weathering as well. These will be done the light silver, and these are all going to be done silver as well. But yeah, I'll get this all put down and then we'll come back and we'll see how it looks when this part's been done. See you in a bit, guys. Okay guys, welcome back. So this is where we are at the minute. We've got pretty much the emblem of the Crusaders down, which is the old English cross, the Knights Templars cross. Needs neating up just slightly. I'll be using the bone skull white to just get that a bit level. You can see there, that's not too level, but level that up. And I just wanted to film it now just to show you, you know, I said that there was certain paints that went on better than others, so you know, I haven't been too neat here, but the red is a much better colour to work with. So if you know, if you're overspill with a particular colour, if you've got a better colour that applies, don't worry too much, and you can neaten it up with your primary colour a lot easier than trying to be careful with a colour that you don't particularly like to work with. So yeah, apart from, you know, filling in a few odd patches that have been missed here and there and knitting these up, I would think you would say that would potentially be tabletop standard already, but we're not going to leave it there, no. So I've got all the base colours on, sort of saying earlier in the video about just breaking up the tone chain by putting a different colour on. Same as here, you know, all these caps looks like fuel cap or whatever. Most of these in a real, you know, let's say like a British tank nowadays, apart from maybe the tips of the exhaust vents, they'd all be camo green and black, or desert. But just painting them in, it just breaks up the colour a bit and just adds a bit of diversity in things. So yeah, we've got the green of the jerry cans as well. Got to go for green. I always remember the old army green jerry cans, so they had to be green. So yeah, next phase is we're going to neaten up all of this, neaten up the cross a bit, make sure they look a bit more, you know, straight. Get rid of all the overspill here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wash all of the red in brown, a brown wash, and we're going all of the black. Well, we might do the tracks in brown as well to represent the dust and the mud, or we might do a mix, 50-50 mix of black and brown. You know, the banner, things like that will all be done in brown. Gun parts, they'll all be done in black wash. So we'll wash it, and then we'll bring up the base colour again, a watered down base colour, just in the more raised areas. We'll do an edge highlight, and then I've already started on the battle damage, just by drilling bits, putting different drill sizes to represent different caliber weapons hitting them, and things like this here. Even though I'll be doing some paint chippings naturally, these are actually, I've actually gouged out of the plastic itself, because you know, you can bang things with your tank and take the paint off, but this is actually, you bang something so hard it's actually gouged into the metal. So yeah, so we'll give it some weathering, give it some more battle damage, get all the washes on it, and we'll show you the finished article. So back when the whole thing's finished. See you soon, guys. Right, hello again, guys. I wasn't going to come back to the model, the Razorback, until after until it being finished, but I thought I'd be cheating this a bit, because I talked about using washers and thinning them down and such. So what I just wanted to touch upon is what I meant by that. So here's a prime example. So we have our wash there. This is a Vallejo wash that I've put into a smaller bottle. So I'm going to take the wash direct from the bottle. Now what's happened with this is, over time some of the moisture's evaporated and it's thickened up. So I'm going to take the wash out, right, direct from the bottle, I'm going to put it on there. Now, what you've got there, to me, is something like a null oil, or maybe like a, yeah, I would say a null oil. I'm just trying to think what the old stuff used to be. Devil and mud. You've got that sort of thick, heavy consistency, dull consistency. Now, if you look here, all I've done is I've just watered it down. I've just went. So same again. Let's go straight to the bottle there. We'll put that there. Right. It's exactly the same thing. Right. And we'll just squeeze out any excess there. Right. Just dab it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do. There's your water. I'm just literally going to put it in, and I'm going to just thin it down, right? And it just gauge it by your own sort of like your own eye as to how thin you think you might want it, or you could test it on the miniature. Same again. What I was saying about making sure your plate or your tailor is clean, because you don't want any bits getting in your wash. Now, with this consistency, when I'm getting the actual recessed areas, I'm probably going to go direct with this, even though it is probably a little bit thicker than Devil and Mud, to be honest. But I want a deep recess into the areas, like shadowy, oily, where dirt would naturally sort of congregate. And with this, I'll probably thin this down even more, and I'm going to directly apply this over the actual miniature, like all the raised areas, everything, just to bring the tone of the red down. But to do it, do it enough so that it just adds a little bit of grime and such, and fits in with the whole theme of my whole army, which has a similar wash. But what I tend to find it does as well is it just adds a bit more protection to the miniature, because in the case of the Razorback, now this Razorback, it's literally had a base coat. I sprayed it with Mecherite red, I think it was. Mephiston red. Sprayed it with Mephiston red, and that's it. So that is literally its base coat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously wash it all, and then bring it up on the raised area with a watered down Mecherite red. And that just almost adds like a protective glaze as well. That's the feeling I get anyway when I'm touching my miniatures. And I'd said in the previous part of this that I'd clean it all up. Things like this, it's not going into focus, but things like that, no, I can't get it. Things like the hatchet, when the ramp comes down, it's going to hit the ground. I didn't bother cleaning that up because I'm going to be doing weathering on that anyway around this region here. But yeah, if you're going for an area that you don't really want to have to worry too much about a dirty, streety look, just make sure you thin it down. And also, when I was saying about washing everything all over, right, I'll just show you a quick example on this. So, for example, I'm really sorry about lighting. It's natural light, but I've got the sun's against the camera. It's making it a bit poor, to be honest. But anyway, so if I just wash that in there, probably actually need, I'll go straight from the bottle, right? And as you can see, I'm using a big dry brush. I'm probably gonna, let me just change that brush. Yeah, I'll go a smaller dry, still a dry brush. And in these recessed areas here, look how much I'm just getting that on there, right? Just lathering it all in, right? And you'd be, some people would be like, "Oh my lord, what's he doing?" Right? But what you do then, you're getting all these areas here, right? Even these areas here, because you are going to get rust off rain and things, so it doesn't necessarily have to be black. I'll go with a black as well, and it'll two-tone it. Right, so people be in despair here, Christ, he's letting it pool all over. But I want it to pool there. Now what I don't want it to do is, I don't want it to, if you can see on that miniature, I hope you can see it, guys. There's I'll put this light on, let's get trying. What I don't want to do is, I don't want to leave all of this stuff here. So all you do, right, is just drag your brush upon, try and avoid the areas that you've just, all of this here, right? Try and avoid the areas that you've just, that you wanted it to pool in, right? Go hit that again. Right. So yeah, try and avoid the areas you want to pool in, but then just clean. Even if you need to get a bit of water on your brush, right? Just to clean it up a bit, right? So that's one example, and then basically on this thin down, you know, one second. So here's our thin down version. Now on the thin down version, basically all you're going to do on your raised areas, right, you're just going to drag it up. Sorry about that. Still getting used to this, painting out at the same time filming. Yeah, you're just going to get it all over. Look, I'm not worrying about it pooling, I'm not worried about any of that, because all I'm doing is I'm dulling down the initial colour, right? Because when it comes to the edge highlight, right, getting it lathered all over there, look at that, I'm not worried about any pool, anything, I couldn't care less, right? Because all I'm doing, when it comes to bringing it back up, my initial base colour is then going to work as a first phase highlight, right? You know, so what I'll do is, I'll use my Mecherite red, and I'll come sort of around about here and drag it along, right? And then maybe I'll water it right down and maybe just, what's the terminology? I think it might be called a wet mix. I'll probably use like a wet mix to just drag the watered down red along here, same type of things I'm doing here, and drag it in the direction of they say with orcs, do the direction that the orc trucks are going, things, and like things like this, just bang it all over there, don't worry where it goes, it really doesn't matter. Even if you spill over onto things that you're going to do a black wash, it really doesn't matter, because you're going to go over in the black anyway, and all of these things are going to have got, all the metallics are going to have got rust on them over time. You know, when I was in the army, you'd do your exercise and you'd finish your exercise, or you'd do whatever you're doing, you'd go back to the tank park, you'd clean the tanks. Look at that, there you go, so you're just dirtying that down there, you clean the tanks, and you know, you'd spend the next week probably getting them back up to parade ground, well, getting them back up to some sort of clean standard, maybe a couple of weeks. But when you're a Space Marine on a planet filled with Necrons and Death Guard and God knows what else, Eldar, Drakari, all the rest of them, you haven't got time to take them back to the parade ground and get them cleaned up in the tank parks. They're just going to be constantly dirty. So even the likes of the Space Marines, I would imagine, I sort of see the Imperial Guard as a bit more sloppy, but I think the Space Marines is more immaculately, you know, everything's gleaming, Guilliman and all that are all sort of like, you know, everything's immaculate. But with my regiment, it's constantly, with my chapter, which is a Ultramarines founding chapter, it's constantly, second founding, it's constantly at war, so it can't do that, and it's not particularly bothered about doing that. It's more concerned about protecting the terraformers of the planet and fighting alongside its planetary guardsman. So yeah, so look, that's just a wash there, and once I've gone off camera I'm going to be doing this more, you know, take my time a bit more, but there, that's the wash on the top part of that done pretty much. No messing at all, couple of minutes, and you can just lather it all up. Because it's been watered down, you can literally lather it all over, and it's just dulled that colour down, ready for me to bring it up slightly with the highlights. So yeah, I just wanted to put that on, guys, just to show you what I meant about with the techniques where I say lather the stuff on. I don't just expect you to get like an Agrax shade or a Devlin mud and just splatter it all over so it looks like, you know, a kid coming home from the playground type of thing. There's still techniques to applying a wash all over and keeping things neat. And as I say, there's a direct from pot. I'll show you again. Things like this, you're going direct from pot because you want it to pool in there, because it's going to add almost like it's going to add a shade, but it's going to be like almost like a rusty, muddy shade where grime's built up in the regions. And that's drying already. Put whack another load in there, get right in the corners, let it pool. No problem at all, because even if it does drip down anything, you're going to clean this. Like, look at that, where it's starting to dry and it's left like a scum mark, but it doesn't matter. You're going to be coming up with a watered down base colour anyway, so it really makes no difference. So just think about what type of wash you want to apply, you know. And yeah, sorry if the camera wasn't great there. I just wanted to get more of the technique rather than seeing the measure itself, but just the technique of thinning down. So the next time, one more thing on that as well. I've said in one of the previous posts about starting the hobby, if you are starting the hobby and you can't afford a bigger brush like this, which is actually a dry brush, but if you can't afford a bigger brush, just get 99 pence. That brush will do fine for getting large areas, large surfaces covered. It doesn't need to be something from Games Workshop or whatever. This can come with time. So yeah, I hope that all helps, guys, and you will genuinely see it when it's fully finished next. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon. So here she is, guys, the finished article. Whoops. Yeah. I'll bring her in and we'll have a look at it. Stick her next to the rest of the guys. And hopefully you can see, if we just bring this over a bit, hopefully you can see what I meant by the sort of like dirty red, the sort of like battle worn red, and you know, you can see it on the troops there, hopefully focus, and on the commander there. I'll show you on the back of his cloak. Let's have a look. There you go, it's almost like that. You know, he hasn't just come up the production line, which I suppose the Primaris have, but it doesn't take long to get dirty, like I said. So yeah, I wanted the Razorback to fall in line with the same colour. My whole army's going to have that dirty colour, and that's basically by, as I showed you earlier, washing it after the base coat has been put on, and then doing probably 2 parts water, 1 part Mecherite red, thin wash / overbrush maybe on top of it, and it just allows the deck to come on. Allows the deck to be seen through slightly. As you can see, I haven't sort of brought up the colours on the cross or on the icon or anything. And the Damocus, I wanted it to be like all the English that you would imagine you'd see on a scroll type thing. So yeah, battle damage. I have edge highlighted. I said I wasn't a fan of edge highlighting, but I think on vehicles I'm going to have to eat my words, because I think you could do with it on vehicles. Yeah, and you know, on the where the ramp's gone down, you're going to get mud. It's a dry planet, so it's more like dusty mud that you get with the paint getting chipped off where it's hitting the hard earth. Dust coming up onto the, you know, the undercarriage of the things. And yeah, I just wanted it to look, I didn't want it to look shiny, I wanted it to look like it's been, so shake your hands, like it's been used and in a battle and things, or multiple battles. The vents at the top, they were dry brushed with Abaddon black to bring it down from the like soot, you know, from the exhaust vents. And yeah, there she is, guys. If you want anything else about it, any of the painting tips I used, all of it was, all the wheels and everything, battle damage, that was all a 2-layer effect, like a dark mud first of all, and then the German mud, or I can't remember, I've said it earlier in the video, that was applied as a second dry brush. But yeah, I hope that's okay, guys. And I think the next thing I'm going to be painting is either Primaris Lieutenant or the Redemptor Dreadnought. Maybe you can put a comment down below which one you prefer to see next. Anyway, that's it, guys. That's my Primaris / normal Space Marine Crusader army, led by Captain Antonius. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye bye.